Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Charmed. A great episode, but kind of like a bit of a downer episode, too. There's a lot that went down in this episode, so let's break everything down. It's some interesting facts. For one, once again, it's something I kind of brought up before. It's always interesting kind of like how this show kind of balances like the science fiction with the magic. In that particular case of Macy, because she's examining the virus that's affecting everybody's like, oh, what's going on here? It's just so interesting because you kind of like, I was like, I always love that aspect about Macy. She kind of brings in the science to the fantasy. But nevertheless, it's interesting because we end up finding out that, because I didn't realize this, like everything that went down last episode with Hunter, I didn't realize they had vanquished him in that moment. It's like, oh no, they had killed him. I didn't realize that. I thought he had gotten away. Turns out the Harbinger was actually in him. That's why he was so powerful. And the moment he died, he ended up releasing it as an airborne virus. It's like Alistair put his son in that situation. To be fair, he's setting his other son up to be the source of all evil. So it kind of makes sense. But I'm sure also Hunter was glad to do it because it's like, hey, the fact of the matter is I can't be the source of all evil. But the fact of the matter is I can help my dad. I can do this. I can help all demonkind by doing this, playing my own part. So I'm sure he was happy to go along with it. But obviously it's affecting a lot of people. And then I was thinking, because I was wondering about this last episode, it's like, why is Nico being affected too? It's like, she's not. The virus isn't affecting her. It's because Mel told her the truth and her brain is shutting down trying to compensate, which is so interesting on many different levels because that's kind of a similar thing in Supergirl. Also, I didn't even notice the episode convention until I looked at, like, the naming conventions until I looked at the titles. Supergirl's episode this week is Red Dawn. This episode's Red Rain. It's just interesting, and just that little bit of a parallel, I just thought that was fascinating. I don't know, it's just kind of interesting just to point out. But nevertheless, I was like, oh, now that's interesting. So the ring is doing, because I was about to say, I feel like any magic stuff should be protected. She should be protected against by the ring. But it's like, okay, so this is kind of more of an internal thing. So I guess the ring can't necessarily affect that necessarily, because it's more so learning the truth now combined with the fact that the magic's already there, kind of being a wall. So the truth hitting that magical wall that's already there is kind of having its effects. It does make you wonder on some level, did the ring affect it in any way or shape or form? Like, did it kind of cause more harm than good having the ring? Maybe the ring trying to protect her is kind of what did the damage. But it just seems like in general, her learning the truth kind of did that to her. So there's that. Galvin's trying to do his best to help with this whole situation, because obviously he wanted to leave all this magical stuff behind, but it's like, hey, for one, if I run, it's not like it's going to do any good, because this situation seems pretty dire that it's going to spread and find me anywhere, so why not stay here and help, and do the best that I can. I mean, literally, the apocalypse is coming. The whole thing is, the Harbinger isn't killing humans, it's turning humans evil so that it can go out there, kill other humans and just cause mayhem and just build up the evil so that it paves the way for the source of all evil. So that's one angle to this whole situation. There's the whole thing of like Maggie obviously still holding hope out to save Parker, but obviously because of this whole Harbinger situation, they're running more out of time, so less time for a plan, more action. You have Maggie reaching out to Parker. I thought that was interesting. I was like, oh, because of the way Parker's like, the fact of the matter is I made my dad believe I was on this. I was like, oh my God, so Parker, I was like, so Parker's playing along? Did he actually like not believe the whole situation that his dad and brother put him in? And it's like, no, turns out Parker was just playing Maggie so they can track down Charity. I even love that whole conversation where Maggie was like, okay, while we got some spare time, I hope you burn, you evil, and doesn't get a chance to finish, because you immediately have Mel popping up like, oh, you want to make that smoke screen so you can stay hidden. The same smoke screen I could have used on Nico rather than rewriting her history. And she's like, oh, I got you. And she's about to attack her, but it's like, no, the prophecy. Sadly, Parker shows up. I did love Maggie kind of taking her stick and splitting it in two and kicking ass, dude. I love it, dude. It's so good. I cannot stress that enough. I love that they have weapons, dude. It's so cool. It's just these added little bonus aspect to it I think is so interesting. Sadly, though, when it was all said and done, though, Charity ends up getting killed by Fiona. It's this whole complicated thing, because obviously no matter how he feels about Charity right now, she's still the woman that he was in love with, and even her being like, I always loved you, Harry, and it's just like her dying in his arms, he's trying to heal her, but it doesn't work, and it's just it's a gut punch to Harry, you know? Then on top of that, you know, Mel's obviously worried about the whole Nico thing, which I don't think gets complicated because Greta's the one that came in there and took the ring off of her just because she already felt like, oh, this is something from Mel, isn't it? Just because of that whole jealousy thing. If that wasn't an issue, the ring could have stayed on Nico. She could have been fine, but nevertheless. You have, you know, Galvin wanting to do his best to help with this situation because he realizes like, yo, he's just a human in this situation, but he didn't, you know, but now after thinking about it, he realizes how much of a heavy burden this is on the sisters, that even though they're witches, they're still humans too, so they have to deal with a lot of this stuff. It's just on the same parallels as him dealing with it because, you know, before all this, they were just normal girls, ladies. They didn't know that they were witches. They were literally the charmed ones, the ones destined to keep the balance of, you know, good and evil, essentially, you know? But Galvin realizes, like, the spell he was going to use to get the Ebi, the darkness, out of Macy, why don't I use that to remove it from everyone, to kind of tip the scales so that, like, yeah, this evil, if we pull it back, it might stop everything from happening by, you know, us pulling people back from that side. But it takes a great sacrifice. His grandmother doing it, she lost a finger. Him doing this to so many people, it ended up costing him his life, you know? And for him, no matter what it was taking, like one life for the many, he was willing to make that sacrifice just because, you know, and that's just kind of the guy Galvin is. It's especially sad because obviously he was, you know, a lot of his mindset had changed because it's like everything between him and Macy, for him, it's like he had no regrets. Obviously the whole being possessed thing, that was rough, but at the end, like I said, it's the thing of like, he realizes how he's feeling. It's just like the girls feel like they have, like Macy and her sisters have to carry such a heavy burden, you know? So Galvin dies and it's just like another strike. You know, Maggie's worried about Parker. Like I said, it's just one thing after another. It's interesting, too, learning what Alistair's plan was. Like, once Parker became the source of all evil, it's like, okay, I'll lead the demons. You, Fiona, get the witches in line, and you'll rule over them. So I was like, huh, that was interesting. Because I don't know why. I guess in my head, I thought you would have just, like, wiped out everyone. Like, I'm curious, like, what... I mean, demons will be in control and stuff like that, but what did that look like? I'm sure maybe killing, if not enslaving humans. I would have expected you to kind of decide to kill witches, because I feel like witches would have been like, they're too much on the side of good, so let's kill them. I'm curious what that would mean for every other supernatural creature. Would they either be slaves or killed as well? Begs the question. You can only assume. So there's that whole situation, so... Obviously, also, Maggie has to deal with the fact is she might have to kill Parker. She's like, no, Parker's asking me to kill him, so that means there's still a part of him in there that's like, no, I'd rather die than be this evil person. But it's still that thing of like, I hope you're right, that there's still enough of him in there to save. And it's just, like I said, it's a bit of a downer episode. I mean, it's literally the apocalypse coming. The skies are getting crazy. Eventually, blood starts raining from the sky. Because even though Galvin sacrificed himself, it didn't stop things from proceeding already, because once the door's open, there's no closing it. To be fair, he still saved so many people's lives, because if he didn't, like, evil would have rooted itself in those people, and like I said earlier, they would have killed other people, and they would have been playing into the hands of paving the way for the source of all evil, like causing chaos and carnage. So Galvin saved a lot of lives by doing what he did. So there's a little quick thing that should also note too, kind of shows Maggie, kind of a little reminiscent of Phoebe, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, to be fair, it's a little reminiscent of Phoebe as well as a little reminiscent of herself. Is that basically because of her empath abilities advancing, she can actually read the past, which is interesting. And I love Harry, like, she's like, yeah, I learned it because, you know, Tessa and her drills. And I love Harry being like, wait, what? I've been pushing for you to study. Never mind, I know now it's not the time, but it's like, give me a little credit. I was pushing you guys to do it, and you only did it because it was okay, whatever. You know, it's just a little thing like that I enjoyed. But, and so basically you have Alistair kidnapping Maggie, because now we kind of finally understand what role Maggie played with this whole Parker situation. Because obviously Parker is going to be still reluctant, because you still need someone 100% willing to be the vessel for the source. But by using her and putting her in the middle of all of this, he kind of forces Parker's hand. Also, Fiona ends up dying, because I guess when that whole spell that Macy had performed on her happened, she didn't realize that her immortality was taken away. So when she was hit with the lightning trying to, summon the flame, she ended up dying from it. And it's like, come on, Harry, heal me. Please, look what magic did to me. It's like, it's not just magic. Yes, the elders messed up and that was on them, but you're willing to cause so much chaos just for that purpose. I think she was under the impression, like, when it was all said and done, she'd be able to kill Parker and take the magic. I don't think that was going to be the case anyway, especially later on with what we see, because I figured as much. It's like, no matter how powerful you are, you weren't just going to be able to kill the source of all evil that easily. So that's a whole thing. It is interesting, though, when she does die, like, you have that conversation really quick with Mel being like, where does she go? Does beg the question, like, what happens to, well, under her circumstances, like, I mean, what happens, I mean, I guess elders die and go back to the source of, like, in this particular case, the source as well as the flame. Do they go to that? Because they are, I mean, they're witches before this, so it's not like they're angels, like, White Lighters or even the elders technically were in the original series. So it begs the question, like, do they go to an afterlife? What about Fiona? Does she go to an afterlife? There's also the question of they're in heaven or hell. I mean, demons come from somewhere, but it's like, so many questions in that regard. It's just like a little thing that I'm like, the fact is that you don't get an answer about where she went. Either that's kind of like a, that's something for later on, I'm assuming, or it could be just like, or like a, no, who cares? Too much other stuff is going on. Ignore that. We probably won't ever answer that. Maybe, I don't know. I'd like to think it's kind of something they're setting up for later on, but nevertheless, it's kind of sad. It's just kind of another hit for Harry, because for him, he even apologized. It's like, oh, I failed you as a White Lighter. It's like, once again, it's like, maybe if you knew that she was still alive, you could have gotten to her sooner before. I mean, things could have played out differently. And that's probably another thing that's probably, in Harry's mind. It's like, for one, he just lost Charity, that whole complicated situation, her killing elders, trying to do everything that she did. It's just, that's complicated. Now, Fiona doing everything she can is like another person he cared about going just like that. So you have Parker showing up, and he's willing to make the sacrifice if it means being able to save Maggie. But then you have Macy being like, he's not the only one that's human with the demon side and everything. I'm like, that's what I was thinking before. I was like, but I was thinking maybe Macy's situation wouldn't necessarily count because she wasn't born a demon. She was born a human, but then she eventually got resurrected by demon blood. So I wasn't really sure. But it's like, I guess she still technically counts in that regard of, like, she, has enough demon blood in her to be considered, I guess, half demon. So she kind of fills the criteria. So it's kind of interesting. She took the power from Parker to be the vessel for the source. Now that was interesting. Didn't see that coming. I always thought it was kind of a possibility, but I wasn't 100% sure. Now that was really interesting. She goes, gets the flame in Alice, and she absorbs it, and it's like, yo, looking a little scary there, ain't you? And then Alice just like, oh, I'm here to serve you. She's like, give me your commands. And she's like, oh, really? And then she proceeds to kill him, which I always felt like that was going to happen. I figured like it was going, because obviously I didn't expect Macy, but I figured Parker would end up killing him, just because either the source inside him was like, oh, actually, I don't need you, you're dead. Once again, would have easily happened to Fiona too, so we're still in the same situation to a certain regard, but Parker is kind of free to that. To be fair, he still runs away in the end, because for him it's like, because of this situation, he was so close to getting rid of his demon side, but now it's kind of back in flux. It's kind of stronger than ever. I think because of being so close to becoming the source of all evil, like being his vessel, that it brought out his demon side and made it even stronger. To be fair, it's also because of what Alistair did, tampering with the medication to force it like that too, so that sucks. It's kind of sad too on this extra level, even though his dad's dead, and it's like, well, he deserves it. Your brother's dead, he deserves it. Your mom's dead, that's just a tragedy. It's sad because, like, yeah, his brother and dad were dicks, complete and utter assholes, but Parker's now kind of alone when it comes to the whole family situation. It's actually super fucking tragic, so, and now he's got to keep his distance from Maggie, the only person he loves. It's like, I have to keep my distance from everyone because, like, my demon side might be too much for me. It's so interesting too, because, like, I was kind of worried, and there's still a possibility of this. Obviously, like I brought it up before, like Maggie and Parker's situation is very similar to the whole, Cole and Phoebe situation. And we know how their story kind of played out. And it's like, I hope theirs doesn't have to play out that way. Not unless they find a way to make a cure, but the only one working on a cure was his mom. Not unless they continue her research, but maybe because of what's happened to his demon side, it might not be possible anymore. She might be the only one that knew everything necessary. Because who's to say Hunter or Alistair didn't burn on her research, so there might not be any way of going back with that. Not necessarily. Well, to be fair, there's still the spell that be performed on Parker. Granted, it'd probably call for a sacrifice. I mean, it'd probably be a little harder too, because it's like, it's not just like, oh, he's like the, well, no, because the same thing was going to happen with Macy, and she had her demon side for a very long time too. Granted, she wasn't aware of it; it was just kind of buried deep within. But it could be a situation of, because Parker is full blown half human, half demon, then maybe his circumstances would be a little bit different than Maggie's. Like I said, she has the criteria to be the source of all evil's vessel, but maybe removing that darkness would be a little bit different than removing Parker's, or maybe it's be the exact same. I don't know. It's just kind of something interesting to think about. But to see Macy full blown with the power and everything, looks like she's actually in control. I mean, that's kind of the whole purpose of like the pendant, to kind of represent the fact that it's a reminder of like her sisters, that even in the deepest darkness, my voice just cracked there. That was neat. Even in the deepest darkness, she still has her connection to her sisters. So that's kind of keeping her in control. It's actually kind of, I guess the episode was kind of foreshadowing it too, because Macy kept blaming herself, because she was like, because if she used her evil sight, if she hadn't broken the needle. But to be fair, like her tapping into that, we've already saw that kind of issues it was causing. But I think that was all foreshadowing for this moment, her getting more and more accustomed to the darkness, so that when the time came, she wouldn't be completely and utterly consumed by it. Because the thing is, like, for her, it's like, I could have seen through Hunter. I could have, saved Galvin. Maggie wouldn't have gotten kidnapped. All of this. She's like, things wouldn't be the way they are. Like, Parker wouldn't be in this situation. She takes all that responsibility, because she's like, my evil sight is there, but I wasn't. Because she's probably thinking, like, I'm not strong enough to do what's necessary. But now she's full blown, full power thing of like teleporting them. It's like, oh no, everything's good because Nico is okay. I fixed that situation. It's like, wait, what? You literally just did that in a second? Yeah, also wiped everyone's mind and down, so it's all good. It's like, oh, maybe we should take a beat to talk about this. No, it's good. I got one more thing to do. It's like, what? So she's going off, and she's like, don't worry, Galvin, I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix everything. You can tell that's going to be trouble, because I'm sure Galvin's not 100% back to being himself, because, there is no resurrecting people. As Full Metal Alchemist has taught us, there's always a price for everything, and resurrecting people does not work out the way you think it will. So Galvin's probably not going to come back as Galvin. Maybe he'll start off as Galvin, but then maybe he'll go full-blown zombie. Maybe his soul got corrupted and he turns into something else, or maybe that's just not even Galvin. You resurrected the body but without a soul, and he's kind of like a soulless monster, kind of still on the level of zombie, but still, that might be the angle we're dealing with. But you have Macy also talking about fix everything. So I'm assuming that's her going to try and fix Parker, this and that. But the more she taps into the power, the more she probably thinks she can control it, when in fact it's too much power for anyone to control. So I'm assuming when it's all said and done, it's going to take the power of 3 to kind of purge that power. I mean, I guess they're going to have to lock it up again, because to be fair, this power that's inside of her is literally the power that's connected to all witches. Which makes you wonder, now that that power is inside of her, what does that mean for the Charmed Ones? Like, maybe their magic kind of works a little differently in certain regards, but I'd assume that kind of affect all magic. I'd assume that affect all witches and all demons. Like, all that power kind of flourished in her. It's kind of all hers, so they have nothing to tap into. Not less because the power still exists, even if it's in Macy, they can still tap into it and use magic. We'll have to wait and see, because we haven't seen anyone subsequently use magic since she got the power inside of her, so there's that. And obviously there's no concern of like, oh, Macy seems like Macy, but obviously a little different. Is that a good thing? It's a bad thing? We won't know until the next episode, which the next episode is in fact the season finale. I am so excited to see what the season finale has in store for us with all of this. There's definitely going to be some very interesting developments. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.